We got Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Antonio Trocoli. Now, I gotta say, this is really not a hard one to break down. It's probably gonna be a one-sided ass-kicking, and I don't really have all that much faith for our boy Antonio Trocoli. Now, look at their recent fights. We haven't seen Mansur Abdul-Malik tested quite at the highest level. You look at his recent fights, the Cody Brendage fight, he looked good in that spot. Both guys were really timid. They were kind of scared of each other's power, so I don't really rate that as a really good fight or a bad fight. It's kind of just like it is what it is for that one. And you look behind that, Nick Klein, yes, there was a really bad spot in that fight. You know, Mansur Abdul-Malik, we saw him get clipped. I believe it was like a spinning elbow or spinning back fist. There was some tricky shot that Nick Klein had that really wobbled Mansur Abdul-Malik. I mean, he could have been knocked out in that spot, but he was able to recover, bounce back. So I like seeing that. You know, a guy got hurt. He didn't panic. He didn't freak out. He didn't kind of just fall apart. He was able to really collect himself, get back, and the second round started. Nick Klein was pretty much death gassed, and at that point, he was able to find the finish. So I like what I've seen so far. And before that, Dusko Todorovic, good fight. I mean, Dusko Todorovic, he has kind of had a little bit of a resurgence in his career. You know, he's had a couple bounce back spots. So I don't really want to put too much weight on those fights. I'm more so, and especially, even the Wes Schultz fight in the Dana White Contender Series. Wes Schultz, the funny thing about this is you can see too on Tapology, or they don't show it, but he was supposed to have, I believe this fight was supposed to happen. For some reason, I thought it was a Contender Series fight. For some reason, I thought they were supposed to fight in the Contender Series originally when this fight got canceled. Maybe not, though. Maybe it was a UFC fight. But I don't know why. For some reason, I thought Wes Schultz stepped up on short notice in this spot on the Contender Series. Correct me if I'm wrong on this spot, but I thought that Mansur Abdul-Malik was supposed to fight Antonio Trocoli on the Dana White Contender Series, but he pulled out. Because I remember after watching that fight, in his post-fight interview, he kind of says, like, man, like, Trocoli was supposed to get this ass kicking, not Wes Schultz, man. He was like, give Wes Schultz another chance. He seems like a good dude. He wasn't supposed to take this ass kicking. Trocoli was supposed to. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's where in my head I'm thinking of this. I could be thinking someone else, but I swear that's what my head was at for this one. But so yeah, this fight has meant to be happening. It's been brewing, it's been cooking, and it's kind of like a what's his name, Atabagatier. It kind of feels like that type of a spot. And I don't really see a ton of ways for Antonio Trocoli to really look great in here. We saw in his fight against Shara Magomedov, we saw that fight did go into the third round, and you could say, okay, maybe his striking looked really good. How was he able to survive into the third round of that spot? He was hugging for his dear life in that spot. I mean, he was trying to hold on to Shara by any means possible, but by the third round, he couldn't get it. And there was one point in that fight where he had a takedown, but Shara, they were in the Middle East. He had this nasty fence grab, kept it on the feet, and he was able to prevent the takedown from happening in terms of he was able to prevent Antonio Trocoli from landing the takedown. You could argue, and I mean, it definitely did change the outcome of that fight. You know, who knows what would have happened if Antonio Trocoli got that takedown? Who knows? But he didn't end up getting it. You know, they were in that part of the world. They liked their guy Shara. The ref went blind there for a moment, but it is what it is. That fight did go long, and eventually Shara got the knockout because we saw Antonio Trocoli, his cardio just wasn't able to go that long. He can't push 3 full rounds when he has a grappling-heavy game plan, and his striking is not great on the feet. So how does Antonio Trocoli win this spot? Who the hell knows? Because I really do think, and when Antonio Trocoli, he was able to have some success against a guy like Shara against the cage when he was grappling, you know, really not even landing takedowns, just like holding him against the cage. He's not going to be able to do that against Mansur Abdul-Malik. Mansur Abdul-Malik has the wrestling background that a guy like Shara doesn't. Now, Mansur Abdul-Malik probably doesn't have the hands and the striking quite yet in this point in his career compared to a guy like a Shara Magomedov. However, he has the wrestling base. So Antonio Trocoli, the only way that I see him winning this fight would be through the grappling. I think he's a sub or bust, honestly, in the spot, because his grappling's not bad. You know, I will say, out of any way that he could win this fight, it probably would be the grappling in terms of this like actual submission threat. That's probably the only way he's going to win this fight. He's not going to beat Mansur Abdul-Malik in the wrestling. It's not going to happen. Mansur does have a wrestling background that he can rely on. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be much more powerful in the raw wrestling compared to a guy like Antonio Trocoli. So in terms of getting it to the ground, you know, Mansur Abdul-Malik has a really nice ground and pound. He can take guys down, and when he gets landed to you, he lands shots on your head, you're gonna go night-night. And we've seen Antonio Trocoli put out before. I don't see how this fight would go any different than that. You know, I feel like Mansur Abdul-Malik, maybe he's able to land takedowns. You know, maybe he goes for a wrestling heavy game plan. I just don't really see why he would need to. He is going to be at a slight disadvantage in terms of the height. As you can see, Antonio Trocoli, 6'6", very tall dude. So maybe it's a bit tough or a bit more challenging for him to reach the head. You know, maybe he's like, screw it. I don't want to try and hit this guy's head from a mile away. Let me try and take it to the ground. I could see that. You know, I just don't think Antonio Trocoli is going to be in terms of his scrambling, going to be able enough to make this fight very competitive. I feel like I don't want to ramble too long about this fight, honestly. I feel like at some point, Mansur Abdul-Malik is going to touch the chin of Antonio Trocoli, and at that point, he's going to go night-night. I would be surprised if Mansur Abdul-Malik submitted Antonio Trocoli. I will say that. I feel like a knockout is 90% likely in this spot. But there's always those spots where it's like someone who never gets any submissions. I mean, he has 7 out of 8 wins by knockout, only 1 submission. It could be the one where he just beats the shit out of Trocoli, and then Trocoli flattens out, and then he somehow he just wraps up like a rear naked choke, like a more like basic submission. He's not doing any crazy shit. It could be like that. I feel like more than likely though, Mansur Abdul-Malik comes out here, keeps it on the feet. I don't even know why he would need to wrestle. He's not going to respect any of the power or the striking threat of Antonio Trocoli. So it's not like a Cody Brundage where Cody Brundage can knock your head off. Cody Brundage does have good power. Antonio Trocoli, he doesn't. So I don't think Mansur Abdul-Malik's going to be afraid of anything in the spot. He's probably going to walk Antonio Trocoli down, knock his head off, get a first-round knockout. We all go home because everyone and their mother parlayed up Mansur Abdul-Malik at minus 1,200, which is probably, and not even probably, it's absolutely insane. Statistically, it's not a good idea, but Mansur Abdul-Malik probably warrants the line, honestly. It's going to be not pretty for Antonio Trocoli. But anyway, that does it for this one.